Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Sausalito Yacht Club. This is a continuation of our speaker series. As you can see, we're back in the building, finally. And we're also Zooming this. I want to make a few announcements and then quickly go to our speaker. It's a fascinating story. We will have another speaker event this month. Ron Holland, the international yacht designer, will be speaking to us for the third Wednesday of May at 6 p.m. He's based in Vancouver, so that will be a fully Zoom presentation, recorded also, as this presentation will be recorded. Ron has been here in the past, has written many a book, etc. In June, Brian Crawford, another return speaker, author based here in West Marin, will be speaking about the shipwrecks off of Bolinas, particularly the wrecks off of Duxbury Reef, of which there's quite a few. So tonight we have a special guest, Cyril, who is based here in Sausalito. His kayak, Ocean Kayak, is here at our dock, and he will be paddling from Sausalito to Hawaii at the end of the month. So please welcome to Sausalito Yacht Club, Cyril. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being online as well. Really happy to be here, present about the adventure that I'll take on. It's a beautiful adventure. Nothing has happened yet, so I won't take any credit for making it happen, but I'll take the credit of arriving to the starting line, which is really, really hard. It took me 3 years to make it happen, and there's everything. There's going to be financing, building the boat, creating the design. But we'll go into this. But before I start, I could tell you all about this particular crossing, but I want to go back to where it came from, because most of the questions I'm being asked is why? Why do you want to do this and how? And I can't explain it if I don't go back to my childhood and go back to how it started and how, because I'm not a crazy athlete that you could see on TV, like LeBron James or whatever. I'm just a regular guy, and I want to show the chronology of how it happened, how I started by a small challenge after the other. So if you allow me, I'll go to the presentation that I've created, where it's not going to be all about that crossing. It's going to be how I got there, because I think that's the message of how maybe in your life you'll be able to say, well, maybe I want to do a challenge like this, not like this, but how do I challenge myself to live such a life? So like I said, I'm a regular guy. These are my kids. I think I based everything in my life through the family. I was happy to be raised by a very strong family. We have 5 kids in the family, and those are my roots. So then I grew my wings. But at the core, I believe that life is an adventure, and we have to live it. So if you think, well, the life is an adventure, that's great. That's putting flower and beyond your hair. Let's go. But it's so true. I mean, imagine a life without adventure. Like, if you define adventure, I was trying to find 4 words to define adventure. An adventure is something that is new. It's something that is pretty spontaneous, but is quite unique. Exciting. Let's go on an adventure that's exciting. And something that is unpredictable, right? That's an adventure. And something that you will remember. Now, let's take these words and try to take the opposite. Something that is new. Okay. Yeah. Try to tell a kid, oh, we're going to go on an adventure. It's going to be old. It's going to be not exciting. It's going to be something that you've done before, and you will have no memories of it. Yeah. And so if you extrapolate this to your life, I'm going to take you on a life that is not exciting, that is going to be boring, that will be, what? Life has to be an adventure. Life has to be, there's no other way. So now it doesn't have to be like crazy and paillette and Barbie. It has to be just on a daily basis, try to find something that is an adventure. So this is how I see life. Let's go back a little bit. Very briefly, before I start, so there's been the life before America and then the life after I moved here. I moved here 12 years ago. Before that, I was traveling in many countries. I lived in France, a pretty regular life in my little town, 5,000 people. And then when I was 18, I decided to go overseas, and my parents sent me to America. I wanted to go to America. So where do you want to go? I took a year off as an exchange student. And I said, I want to go to America. I was thinking of, going to Malibu or going on that beach bike and stuff. I ended up in Arkansas. And I was an exchange student for 1 year in Arkansas. But that was amazing because I thought I love to be in a foreign country. I love to speak a different language. I love to travel, see new people, new filters of culture. I want to do that more. So then started maybe for 10 years, I did so many countries. So after Arkansas, I came back, I did 2 years of economics, and then I did a master's degree in international business, which was 1 year in England, in Oxford, 1 year in Madrid, and 1 year in Paris. So then I would speak, English. I had to relearn English when I was in Oxford, let me tell you, after Arkansas. But then Spanish from Madrid, right? And then French in Paris. But then after that, I moved to Italy for a year and a half in Milan. And I was working for Peugeot and in marketing. And after that, I said, I'm not really ready to work. So I'm going to do a trip around the world for 1 year. Backpacking with a friend. And I had no money. So we did the whole trip for $7,000. And loved to be in South America. And I fell in love with learning Portuguese. So I said, I'm going to learn Portuguese. After my trip around the world, I went to Brazil for 6 months. So I would learn Portuguese and play soccer and actually teach English. After Brazil, I went back to France. And then I stayed for a year. I got bored a little bit. And then I moved to Argentina for a year and a half, opened a subsidiary in the wine business. I was in Mendoza. So again, like adventure. I want something that is exciting. I moved to Argentina, and then from Argentina back to France. And I ended up in California, and that's where the story started. Like, until that moment, my sport was soccer in Brazil, Argentina, Italy, Spain, England. It's all soccer. And I moved here, and a friend said, "Why don't you come and paddle with us right here in the Fort Baker? There's a club of outrigger canoe, and it's Hawaiian. It's more Polynesian canoe." So they said, "Why don't you come paddle?" And I never paddled before. That was in 2008, that's 12 years ago. I said, "Well, let's go." And I started to do racing of 8 miles, 12 miles. So it's 45 minutes of racing. And I remember I didn't know anything. So in the morning, that first race I did was 45 minutes. I woke up 2 hours before I had my pasta so I would have my carbs. That's how much I knew about racing. Anyway, I loved it. They put me up in the front because I could keep the pace, like boom, boom. And you don't have to change. I wasn't never very, very strong, but I could keep the pace. And also, I would not stop. I don't care if you're tired. Let's go. Boom, boom. We go around Angel Island. And 2010, the Holy Grail was the Molokai Hoi. It's from the island Molokai to Oahu, and that's crossing the Kaiwi Channel. And then we trained for 2 years with friends. I mean, obviously, look at these guys that are like buff. And I was like, well, how do I keep up with those guys? But the crossing was 6 hours. So I go from an hour and a half to 6 hour race. So for 2 years, I was like, how do I train for this? Okay, that's nutrition. You don't want to break down. You don't want to have enough food. You have hydration is going to be super important. Okay, so I love that race. I did it in 2011 again. And again, 6 hours, paddle with a friend, having a blast, arriving. So you hit the wall at 5 hours. You're like, whoa, I don't want to keep going. Let's go. Boom, boom. Arriving in Waikiki, amazing. Wow, we got laid. Well, we lays and, and whatever. It's like Hawaii. It's amazing. Having a blast. So then I said, okay, I can do the 6 hour. How about I call these friends of mine and we paddled out rigorously. There's this race up in Canada. It's called the Yukon River Quest. It's 444 miles. Oh, it's 43 hours. How about we do this? And it's in Canada, so it's different kind of boats. It's called a Voyager. And you go down the river, the Yukon River. And man, that was a blast, 43 hours. And again, those guys have been paddling for 20 years. And I was up front and I was paddling away. I was doing good. I told the mental, keep going, let's go. Boom, boom. Okay, let's go. And having a blast. I say, well, 2012, and it's all about believing in yourself. And at that point, I said, well, I kind of like those ultra endurance events where I can keep going. Maybe that's my style. I love it. What's next? So then I called my buddy up in Monterey, that's Roman, and I said, look, there's this website called the Great Pacific Race. They say you don't need to be a rower to cross an ocean. Now, I was a paddler. There's a difference between canoeing and rowing with oars going backward. I didn't know how to row. So in 2012, we say, okay, we're going to sign up for that race in 2014, 2 years, and I'll have time to learn how to row. So I bought this little fishing boat and I added some oars on it, and I was paddling here in the bay. I was living on a houseboat with a friend just because I wanted to go at night, and I wanted to go at any time of the day. So I went around that bay many times. Anyway, that was the goal. But unfortunately, no money. I couldn't find the money. We wanted to buy a boat that was brand new. We wanted to go for the Guinness record, so we had to have a brand new boat that was $80,000. I couldn't have the money. So instead, what I decided was to be a support crew for this team of 2 guys coming from France. And I was a support crew. And being a support crew was learning about food, learning about the GPS, learning about the tools they have, the AIS, EPIRB, PLB, all these acronyms that I would just learn through that. So I said, okay, the ocean is always going to be here. It's sad because I had been training for 2 years trying to learning how to row. But okay, I'm going to do it in 2 years. So in the meantime, I go back to Molokai and I do the Molokai Hoe again, having a blast. And you see this guy on the top right. This is Thiago from Brazil. And this is what I loved about the canoe, outrigger canoe. We could have guys from all over the world come into that one race and paddle with us. And Thiago, we'll see him again. But obviously, this picture I think is kind of funny. Look at these guys that are so tall. I'm the little guy in the middle. But they still more than me in the crew. I'm 5'10", although I'd like to think that I'm 6'2". But I'm in the front, and I don't think they'll want to put anybody else because I'm not stopping. You're tired, I don't care. Boom, boom, you better paddle. Let's go. So this was a crew for the Molokai Hoe. We did really good on that, but it's always a fun. And here's Thiago on the right side of that picture again. Now, in the meantime, as I prepare to get ready for the 2016, 2 years down the road, I keep doing other races. So this is the California 100. It's a race down the Sacramento River from Redding all the way to Chico. And this is a different kind of canoe. I called my friend, I call him Thunder Johnny because he's always ready. That was like 3 days before. Thunder Johnny, you want to go? Let's go. Yes. And we did that in 12 hours. That was good practice. And as I do these races, I learn about nutrition. I learn about managing your pain level, managing your mental, and how to adapt the way you see the situation. So when they tell you have to be mentally really strong, it's not about give me 10 push-ups and 10 more. That's not mental strong. It's mentally strong is actually seeing the reality and being able to adapt it so that it makes sense to what goal you want to reach. So 2015, for the first time in the Molokai Hoe, I love it. I arrive in Honolulu and I'm like, whoa, this is so cool, and such good friends. And I go back to the life of adventure where this is what I want. And I kind of decided along the way, if you think, okay, I want to be happy, what makes you happy? Is it buying a bigger house, more cars, or travel more, having whatever more material possessions? I decided that it's not about trying to be happy. It's about trying to make something that makes you walking with your grandpa down the street that you felt like great. That moment where you had a good vibration, repeat that, do it differently, adventure. And this is what's going to bring you happiness. So finally in 2016, we make the crossing from California to Hawaii, taking off from Monterey, and it took us 40 days. Now, before I start going into that adventure, there's a flashback. I told you I did the trip around the world when I was 25. I went to my local school. There's 5,000 inhabitants in that little village. So there's like one school with 3 different classes. And I took my backpack and I said, okay, guys, here's my backpack. Here's my shoes. Here's the map on the wall. I'm going to go through all South America. And 6 years down the road, these guys came, knock on my door. I was living in Santa Rosa. Knock on my door, and they said, oh, we're 3 buddies. We go around the world. And maybe you don't remember, but 6 years ago, you came to our class. Mm-hmm. And you're the one who inspired the spark of that trip. Mm-hmm. And these guys were going around the world looking at all the microcredits, when you lend maybe $100, $200 to somebody and they can buy a bike, and then it creates all these countries. And I was like, wow, this is so amazing. You don't know who you're going to inspire. So from then I decided to talk to as many people. So before my crossing to Hawaii, I went to this French American school in Santa Rosa, spoke to 380 kids. And then I spoke to another school in Santa Rosa, 440, and another school, 400. So 1,000 kids, different age, from 8 to 12 to 14, 15. And I don't know who's going to be inspired. Maybe one guy, it just takes one guy to love it and come back in 10 years and tell me, you know what, you inspired me. That was awesome. So I did this. It's part of my thing, and this is talk as well. But here's the video of that'll show you the crossing, because I've done it before on a rowing boat. So that's the last story is kind of fun, because we were Team United Nations. There was Thiago from Brazil, there was Fian from Iceland, I was from France, and Carlo from the US. And at first it was really cold, because it's not that cold, but if you're wet and there's wind, then you get cold at night. And Fian from Iceland was like, this is great. And Thiago was like shivering, like it never like. And then the second half, when we were in Hawaii, we were in the cabin like sweating like nothing, like a sauna, and everybody was like, what the hell, I need to drink. And Thiago was like, I love this place. So, well, you guys are familiar with the condition you could get on the ocean. Some of you probably already did that crossing, but as a human powered vessel, you go west and then you drift south. So this is going to be the curve that is going to be the most likely my curve to get to Hawaii. At the beginning, it's going to be a bit more painful. It's going to be making 30 miles and then maybe lose it. 30 miles and drift to the south. 30 miles and lose it. It's going to be painful for Ashley to see what's going on. And, well, he's in Los Angeles. Where's he going? Should he keep going west, or we give up and go to Mexico? This is going to be the curve. And I've got a really, really good crew supporting me to take the right decision. But, yeah, there's going to be rough moments. On a rowing boat like this, you can... the waves don't really affect you that much. You're a little bit splashed, but it's not too much. My boat being only like 15 inches off the water is going to be very different. So I've calculated that between 18 to 20 knots over there out in the ocean might not be safe. So I might have to go back in the cabin and just wait it out. We'll see how I feel, but I do need to make progress west at the first 2-3 weeks. But the lesson is, wow, such an amazing sight, 360 degrees of nothing, just the ocean. The sunrise and the sunset are just being beautiful, and and arrive with a cherry on the top is to get the Guinness World Record. The family waiting for us, and just a blast. I mean, push yourself to the max, and I just can't explain it. I mean, there's no explanation, but tough on the body. I lost 15 pounds, but in the end, it's all about keep going. Let's go. I'm not stopping. But it's easy when you have three guys that say, "Oh, yeah, you're doing good. Let's go." If you're alone, it's going to be something different. And you might see, I love people. I'm very an extrovert, so that's going to be the biggest challenge for me, is to be alone. How do I manage that? And when I finish this, I say, I'm never going to do this again. This is madness. Nights were hell. It was so hard. And now it's all about enjoying the simple pleasures, like a hot shower, a dry pillow, a hug from a kid, listen to the birds, like cold beer, like a hot pizza, whatever it is, like simple things. Just dry sleeping would be best. So I went back to having my regular fun on the water and paddling. So this is the Yukon River Quest. Remember, I did it in a 6-man. This is a 4-man. I got convinced a few friends, and we did the race in 52 hours on a C4. And then I did it again in 2019 with my friend Galen, who's the owner of Sea Trek. You might know Sea Trek. And I called him like literally 2 weeks before. Okay, let's go on an adventure. And he said, all right, let's do it. And that was a blast. 56 hours because we're a little bit slower. But I mean, just to paddle 25 hours on the first leg, it was like, okay, how do you paddle more than a day? It's pretty grueling, but in the end, it's worth it. So then I go back. This is it's called surf ski. I don't know if you're familiar, but if you come here in the morning, you'll see me every day coming on that surf ski, on a single, on a double, and do different races on a triple. It's a performance kayak, so it's really fun because you're kayaking forward, but you go so fast. Any kind of little swell, you're on it, and boom. So I was happy, but again, I started to dream. I started to read about books, and one book in particular called The Pacific Alone. I don't know if you don't know that story of Ed Gillette. Ed Gillette is from California. He crossed from here to Hawaii on a kayak. And I read this book and I'm like, wow, amazing. And the guy, imagine, back in 1987, most of you were not born. In 87, there was no GPS. So he crossed with a sextant. And he was sleeping he bought a 2-man kayak. He was sliding in the cockpit and put a top over himself. And he ran out of food. He had no way to contact land, so people thought he was dead. He arrived in Maui, thought he was going to be a hero. Nobody was there. And last 10 days, he had no food, so he took his toothpaste and put it on a gum like this, just to have something fresh in the mouth. He finished his toothpaste. I mean, the guy's a legend, a trailblazer. He left Monterey. He didn't call the Coast Guard because he said they're going to stop me. And so I read this book, Ed Gillette. I contacted him. I wanted to be in touch with him. And I read about, so this is Ed Gillette with his boat when he left. Imagine he had 200 pounds of food. He left from Monterey and made it to Maui in 64 days. So now he had a kite. So some days he could go pretty fast. He would do up to 70 miles a day back in 87. And I read about this guy called Peter Bray. Let's see if I can, well, probably I wouldn't go it. But anyway, so there's, Peter Bray had a boat, and I called Peter Bray. He's in England. He crossed the North Atlantic from Canada to Ireland. And I read his book, 76 days, his boat never capsized. Say, I got to talk to that guy. I found him. It was hard to find. And I speak to Peter Bray. I said, Peter Bray, do you like your boat? Yeah, it was amazing. It was great. It was built by Rob Filloy. So I said, give me his phone. I don't have his phone. It's been 20 years ago because he arrived in Ireland on 2001, September 9th. 2 days before the Twin Towers. So his adventure was, nobody spoke about it. And Rob Filloy was in Devon, England. And I call him. I said, Rob, can you build me a boat? I want to cross the ocean. He said, look, that was in 2001. We're in 2021. That was 20 years ago. I'm retired, bro. He didn't call me bro. He said, chap. But I mean, I don't have anywhere I can build it.
come on, let's go, let's speak again. Let me see, blah, blah, blah. So then I speak again another time, and I must have been convincing enough so that he finally said, okay, I'll make a way. We'll find it. And I said, well, let's take the design that you had and try to improve it from the technologies of today. So he started to create these designs. Oh, Russell, how could must have done something. Oh, there you go. I found it. So I said, I want a cabin big enough so I can lay down. And I also want to add a pedaling system. So Ed Gillette only had kayaking. So he would kayak all day. But he arrived in Maui and his leg was atrophied. Because he explained it like it's like having your leg in a cast for two months. Yeah. You don't use them, your muscles shrink, you can't walk. So I said, okay, I like to use the lower body. So there's a system called the Mirage Drive from Hobie. You pedal like this, and then it's really efficient. I want to add this so I can use my upper body and my lower body. And it's just better health. And then Ed Gillette said, well, you know, if I'd done that trip 10 times, I probably would have failed 5 times. Well, that means 50% rate of success. That means 5 times he would probably be lost at sea. And I said, I want 98% of success. And I want, if I have any injury in the upper body, you know, when you kayak, you're like this. So there's a rotation of the spine, there's the core, and there's every little piece, like their shoulder, elbow, wrist, anything can go wrong. So what if I paddle 10 to 14 hours a day. I'm going to be hurt. So what if I have an injury and I have to stop? I don't want to quit. I want to be able to use the legs. Another thing was, okay, so if I only have the paddling system, if I eat in the morning 1 hour, lunch 1 hour, dinner 1 hour, that's 3 hours, the boat is not moving. So if I can pedal and have my hands free, I can eat. And I do 3 hours of moving. 3 hours of moving times 70 days, that's 210 hours of moving. That's how many days? That's like 8 days that I could shave off my crossing just by pedaling when I'm eating. I said, that makes perfect sense. Let's do it. So I added the pedaling system. Now, the purists of kayaking are going to say, well, it's not kayaking because you have a pedaling system. But the difference, and it's my adventure, so I decided the parameters of it. And the parameters that I chose were human-powered. So I didn't want to use a sail or a kite like Ed Gillette. I want to be the first one to cross human-powered. So the upper body, lower body to me is okay. I wanted to do it unsupported. That means the moment I take off from Horseshoe Cove for Baker to the moment I get to Maui or Hawaii, actually Honolulu in my case, it's completely unsupported. I don't want anybody to bring me any food, any support gear. I have everything in the boat. So that means medical kit. Anything could happen, the ear, the eye, any tool to repair my boat. I want to have the water makers have enough water, enough food for my whole crossing. So that's the parameters that I decided. I could have said I want to be supported. The boat comes along and gives me food. Then I'm lighter. I could have a lighter boat, go faster. That was my adventure, so I created it. But anyways, this is Rob Filoy sending me pictures of England and building the boat finally. Wow, amazing. You know, and then she's taking life. And then here you go. He puts the carbon fiber. It's a sandwich of cork with two carbon fiber, very light, about 90 kilos. So that would be what, 180 pounds or something like this, or 200 pounds, empty. And there you go. Last year in January 2020, I was before COVID because COVID was March. January, I go there and then I see Rob. Oh, let's go. 3 months to go. The boat's going to be ready in March, and the idea would be to have the boat in the container ship end of March, so we would arrive here, and I would have 3 weeks to paddle here in the bay and then take off. In the meantime, well, I can't wait. I need to get used to the confinement. So, despite the reluctance of my girlfriend, I bought a lot of wood, and I built this little cabin to the size of my cabin. And yeah,
you in the doghouse.
Oh yeah, exactly. And I put it in the backyard. And I would go there and just spend time on it. I had my computer. I would spend 2 hours on it and I would sleep on it just to get used of the confinement. Because how do you get used to a confinement? The boat is going to get here. I'd have to be ready. So what I did, actually, I put it on my little trailer. I would go see my friends in Monterey, put it in front of their house and sleep in it. Yeah, just whatever you have to do. But COVID happened. My boat was supposed to go on the container March 27. March 24, lockdown in England. Then 3 days, they couldn't access the boat on the boat yard to put it in the container. Wow. Okay, they were like, okay, it's going to last for 2 weeks. Then they reopen everything. Then the container comes 2 weeks, 3, 4 weeks, 1 month. All right, I'm running out of time. I got to go here end of May, early June. Otherwise, I'm going to have the hurricanes. You guys know about it. So, all right, I got to postpone it 1 year. Bummed. I've been training so hard to have everything ready. Everything like, finance, work, family, all this stuff. Okay, what do I do for 1 year? COVID happens. They still send me pictures of what they do, self-brightening test in England. And finally, they can send it to me. But I said, okay, I've got a year to get ready. I'm going to have fun in the meantime. I want to live adventure. So then that didn't really make sense. Again, I see Ashley is laughing because I said, I'm going to have a year of having fun. What? You don't have to work? No, I'll work, but I'm going to have fun. So I started here. There's 10 islands in the bay. I'm going to go all around the 10 islands. So I take my friend and say, okay, Mark, let's go. There's 38 miles. I did 8 hours and a half. And then I went, all right, I can go down the Sacramento River from Reading. Anybody done that from source to sea? No. Okay, well, I'm going to do this. So I take off from Reading and I went down with my kayak all the way down. It took me 9 days. I was paddle 30 to 60 miles a day. And I was fit. Why not? Let's go. Went down the river all the way through Sacramento, down the Rio, the Delta, and all the way to the Golden Gate. And then I created another adventure. There are 7 bridges. I want to try to go and time with the tides and go from the first bridge, Carquinez, all the way down. And then 60 miles, I did that in 10 hours, 15 minutes. Having fun. Another one, I said, well, there's Lake Tahoe. You could cross the Lake Tahoe. You could cross the Monterey Bay. How about I do that the same day? I cross Tahoe the morning. I go down with a kayak on the top. Let's go down to Santa Cruz and cross Monterey Bay. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it because the weather was so bad. It was not good to paddle that afternoon. It was too windy. So I did the crossing the next morning of Monterey Bay. And then I said, okay, I called my friend. He's got a boat here. And I said, look, I need to have some experience at sea and kind of remind myself of what the conditions are at sea and different levels of wind, 15, 20, 35, 30 knots. And he said, well, I got to bring that boat down from La Paz. It's called the Baja Bash. I said, what is the name? I don't care. I'm in. And it was actually not very fun. If you know the Baja Bash, you go up the coast and against the wind, and you're like, bash, bash. That's why it's called the Baja Bash. But it took us 10 days, 1,000 nautical miles. And that was great. We take turns, 2 hours on, 2 hours off. Kind of like the ocean rowing, but then, you use the PNG and plotter, and then you wake up at any time of the night and kind of see the different states of the sea. That was fun adventure. And then I said, well, okay, let's take a week and I'm going to take my bike. And maybe with a week's notice, I decided to go from LA up to San Francisco. 2020 was the best year for me. I wouldn't speak to anybody. I had my tent and my bike and let's go. And then my friend called me again. I got to bring this catamaran from Ensenada, San Francisco, 7 days. Okay, let's go. Autopilot. And actually, there was no autopilot. We had to do it and be on the helm. But it was all the engine. There was no sail. It was a brand new boat. It was fun. But all these adventures, I got to know. I don't know if you're familiar with Explorers Club. It's a club that was born in New York in 1918. And the Explorers Club is quite a specific club about adventures and exploring and science. And to be part of the club, you have to show that you're an adventurer at heart. And it's very not exclusive, but you have to show that you've dedicated your part of your life of living that way. And to give you an idea, you see on the top right, you have the flag of the Explorers Club that have been part of most of the exploration first. This one was first to the moon. They had the flag of the Explorers Club. First of North Pole, first South Pole, first Everest, always Explorers Club. So it's an honor to be part of that club, and I guess all these adventures that brought me that. And finally, Valentine Arrives. My ocean kayak Valentine, I named her my sister, but because she's a dreamer as well, and she makes her dreams happen. Valentine Arrives. Okay, there she is. That's at Sea Trek right there. You can see she's 23 feet, as long as a double kayak. and she's right here at the dock. And then it was 7 months of just trying to get to know her, get in it, sleep in it, take her out the bay, put her on the buoy, and just go in different conditions, see how she goes upwind, downwind, side winds. Do I need to change some system? Maybe a bigger dagger board, lighter dagger board, better dagger board. Maybe, you know, there's an issue that I found is that the vents that I had were not enough. After 3 hours in the cabin closed, I did one night, there was like 40 knots of wind. I attached myself to a buoy. There were waves coming up. So I closed everything, all the little hatch. For 3 hours, no oxygen. I woke up. So I went to bed at 8 o'clock, woke up at 11 p.m., hyperventilating, like, what's going on? I opened the light, no oxygen, CO2 building up. Okay, there is an issue here. And that made me think that the COVID was actually a blessing in disguise, because I had time to spend time on the boat. Had I had the boat for 3 weeks, I probably wouldn't have seen that. Now I put the fans in front of the vent so I can have a better flow in and out, blah, blah, blah. But basically just spending time on it and making sure I know everything on the boat. So now this box, you can see the Pelican case with all my electronics, solar panels, regulators, down to the battery. I need to be able to switch anything. I need to be an electrician. I need to be a doctor. I've got my medical kit. I need to be able to no, it's not sewing. It's what is it? A suture myself. I need to be able to fix anything, right? And there's nobody else. I need to be able to use the BNG plotter. I need to be able to see, okay, now I'm hallucinating. You know, I have a really good crew. I've got a friend in Santa Cruz, one of the guy who did the race, the Yukon River Quest. He knows me because we went through that race together. He's a very good friend now, but he's not emotional the way. So he has to know me, the way I function. And I trust him enough so that he's got a feet on the ground, he's going to take the good decision. But a photographer came and said, you know, can I take pictures of you on the boat? So that was amazing, because then I had pictures, I could talk to people about it. And then the media started to be interested. You probably know that boat is out in the bay sometimes, but sunrise, yeah, down at the Golden Gate, you know, paddling and just getting to know Valentine, and then the months after months and getting closer and closer. And now we're 25 days from departure, and I feel I'm ready. This was 2 weeks ago. Out of the Golden Gate, a photographer from Sacramento said, I'd like to take a picture. How about we meet at 5 o'clock for the sunset? So I go around Yellow Bluff, and I've been paddling for 10 years. I didn't see that many whales. And then I see the spout under the Golden Gate. It was flooding hard. And I called Tom. I said, Tom, follow me. I'm going to chase that whale. Boom, I go. I paddle as hard as I can. He comes out a second time. Psh. Okay, I calculate the speed to go. So it was going towards Angel. Wow, I go. It comes like right here. Wow, my God, I was yelling so hard. And so I take it as a good omen. You know, like, wow, this is it. I'm ready. I mean, and a friend of mine was telling you, you know, you got to know your boat. You got to know her personality and all that. And this encounter said, okay, Valentine she's a whale. She's slow, she's heavy, but she can weather anything. And I feel safe in that boat. So I have to put a picture of a whale pretty soon. But Tom, yeah, you know, he did great pictures, and he said, you know what, use them. So then that was started months ago. The press started to pay attention to that. Well, I don't know if it's a conjunction of COVID and we started to be free again, do stuff, but okay. So ocean rowing is pretty common. It's uncommon quite a bit, but there's been 700 and 800 ocean rowers across oceans. But kayaking is very, very seldom done. In fact, there's been less than 10 ocean crossing in a kayak, and less than 4 single men that are also human powered. So, yeah, I mean, they're competing against each other now. It's kind of fun. There's Hawaii News that say, I want to do a video, and then the guy in San Francisco sees it. Oh, I want to do a piece. I want to be, and that's kind of fun. It's taking a lot of time. I do a lot of podcasts, presentations like these. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, but I think I'll turn it off completely on the 15th. So in 10 days, that's it. I'll have 15 days, because what's important, what is going to make me successful? It's okay to speak to TV, but I need to make it. So I need to fix my ventilator. I need to fix my water maker, turn it on, turn it every day, make sure it works. My pooping system, my food system, my sea anchor, all that stuff. I need to have it nailed down. In the last 2 weeks, I won't speak to anybody, but I need to focus on that. But so here's a few things. 25 days to go today. It's coming fast. It's shrinking. Like every day there's 1 day less, but it feels like time is like flying now. But if you want to follow the adventure, please do. The website is solokayaktohawaii.com. On Facebook is my Facebook page, Cyril Derreumaux Adventure, and Instagram. I've got a gear called BGAN Explorer. That's a satellite dish that gives me internet. So now internet is now going to be great. It's an Inmarsat satellite. So I can send a video, 1 minute video at low resolution will take me an hour if it's a clear sky, but I'll be able to send some videos and pictures. So on the Solo Kayak to Hawaii, maybe Russell, go ahead and take over. There's going to be a page where you could see a tracker. I've got a GPS that is going to send. This is a website, Solo Kayak to Hawaii. And if you click on Live Tracker, you're going to see the map of where I am every day. And every hour, the GPS is going to put it up to date. So right now, obviously, I'm in Sausalito. But if you scroll down a little bit, there's another map you might be familiar with called Windy. And windy is the weather at that time. So you could scroll that little, 8 knots. You could move it to where I am. You could see exactly the winds that I have, the 25 knots, whatever it is. And then you can go right now that it's on wind. So you see the wind, but you can go on gust. What is a gust of wind? You can see what are the waves pattern, and you can follow and kind of see where I am. So I think it's pretty cool. Another thing I'm really proud of, it's a 3D model, and actually Amra, who's here, is the one who made it happen. She has a 3D modeling company, and she created a model of Valentine that is just out of this world. I spent hours on it, just scroll it down and make it turn and look at it. But it's beautiful. So if you wanted to see more about that kayak, you could go and zoom in, and it's so beautiful. I mean, it looks like the real thing, just floating up in the air. Look at this. So thank you, Amra, for this.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. That's really explaining the adventure. It's taking the technology that I have nowadays. Of course, I'm not going to repeat what Ed Gillette did, but that makes sense to have the technology, to have the ePerb, to have the sat phone. He didn't have a sat phone. I'm sure if he had to do it in today's condition, he would take a sat phone. But he's always going to be the legend in my eyes, and that's it. Thank you very much for listening.
So why don't we start off our Q&A with a question from the folks in Zoom land. We had a question from them, and the first question is, where did it go? First question is from Gil. Gil, can you unmute and ask your question?
Sure. Thank you so much. What an incredible story and adventure ahead of you, Cyril. My question is, on your last trip, given how critical weight is, was there anything that you brought that you really didn't need? And was there anything that you desperately miss that you have added to your list this time?
Was reviewed. We couldn't take more than we could. The boat was 2,000 pounds, if I recall. And in fact, the first 2 weeks we had to sleep on food because we had so little space. And when the space is little, we look again at the list and say, okay, take this off. Now, the problem is going to be exactly the same now because my boat is even smaller. The cabin is just like a little big coffin. It's I can barely sit on it. And it's the length of my 6.5 frame. Oh, sorry, 5.10. Yeah, it's the food has been a challenge. It's usually freeze-dried food because it's lighter, it still has some volume to it. So there's another thing that I've added now. It's a bar. It's a high nutrition bar. It's 550 calories, so it's a big bar, but it's quite heavy, but it's as heavy as a freeze-dried food, but it's more convenient because I just eat it. I don't have to heat it or anything. And now when you're alone, you have to have much more, I guess, because I need to be able to repair anything. You know, if I hit a container floating on the water, and to be able to repair it with epoxy. So I think I'll tell you more about what I had to take off my list. And right now I have a big list of everything that I would like to have. Once I load it in 2 weeks, I might have to get things off. But right now it's a perfect list. I've got everything that I need.
Thanks so much, and very good luck to you.
Thank you, Gil.
Questions from the dining room?
I would think one of the biggest challenges is water. And, you know, Ed Gillette had no water maker.
He did, yeah.
Clearly, I mean, there were no really water makers.
Oh, he had a water maker,
Well, he
yeah.
did have a water maker.
Yep.
So what do you do to secure to make sure that is working? Because if that
Right.
fails, you're done.
Right, so the one I have is called the Power Survivor 40E. It's from Katadyn. It's a really good water maker, and this one's brand new. And it did work for years, right? It's brand new. I'm going to turn it off in 2 weeks, and then we're running every day since. And that's powered by the batteries, right? Solar panels, batteries. If my power dies, I can't use it. So I'll have a backup. It's another Power Survivor 30, and that's a manual one. So I throw a hose on the overside, and I just pump. And it's going to be less efficient. I'm going to lose energy making water, but there's no other. Now, if that dies, I've got a contingency plan. The third one is go back to the first unit, remove the pump, and there's going to be some mechanical involved. I have to dismantle completely from the hull because it's bolted to the bottom. And it's in a small container. I won't be able to add the handle if it's in the container. So I have to take it out, put it in the cabin, and then add the handle, leave it there. So it's going to be not perfect. I'm going to lose some stability because that weight is going to be higher than the water line, but I'll be able to make water. So 1, 2, 3 options, I should be fine.
I have 3 questions. One is the cockpit self-bailing? I mean, if you fill up the kayak, does it self-bail?
It's not safe bailing, but I do have a bailing
You have the bailer.
pump from the inside.
Okay.
From inside the cabin, I can bail the cockpit electrically. I can bail the cockpit manually. I have a whale pump.
Sure.
And also I can bail out the cabin because the water maker is inside the cabin. So if there's an intake of water there or leak of water, I can bail it out. Now from the cockpit, I can turn also the bailer. It's electric bailer from inside, and it takes me 2 minutes and 43 seconds to empty completely the water.
My second question, will you wear a wetsuit or a dry suit or any kind of protection?
So there's various options. The dry suit will be my safety gear, like in case I have to go into the life raft. Just because one of those neoprene survival suits is just inconvenient. There's no room. I can't use my hands, so I'll have a dry suit. Now paddling, I'll have foul weather gear from sailing. I didn't want to have something too tight that wouldn't breathe very well. So I have skirts, so I shouldn't have too much water on the legs. On normal days, I won't have the skirt. I'll just have the pants, and that should be warm enough. Now the second half, I'll get rid of this because I'll be too hot. I have the long sleeve. Most likely I'll keep the long sleeve and just a hat, big hat and sunglasses but it'll be the opposite. I'll be super hot.
My third question, and a little background, I row and I scull. I've seen you out, rowing. I mean, kayak, and I've been rowing by. If I'm in a sculling seat for 3 hours, my butt is killing me. I mean, literally killing me.
Yeah.
And I get a pseudo sciatica. I mean, it literally my left cheek. And I've tried various pads and bicycle seats off. How do you protect your behind if you're sitting?
So it's one of the
hours?
issues, on the rowing shell, there's 3 points of contact: the feet, the hands, and the butt.
Yeah.
And each of these, you see the blisters that I had on my hand. The butt, you could create blisters and have we call it pizza butt, and that's not
I never thought of it.
right. It's not very, very good. there's ways to mitigate this, and you have to be really careful. So every time you go back in the cabin, the first thing is hygiene. You get dry, take the baby wipes and get the salt out of it. Then you dry it. And there's a cream called the pseudo cream that we put on that. You're probably familiar with that. It's like a baby rash kind of thing, a zinc based, really good. Now, there's no other. I mean, you're moving on a sliding seat and they're chafing, so it's going to happen. Now, on my kayak, I'm not moving as much the hips, so I should be okay. It might happen, but I will have all these different solutions. Another one is when you hike, you put a first sock, like a very, very thin sock, and then you put a wool socks on the top, and then the chafing happens between the two socks, not between the socks and your foot and your butt. So, sorry, your foot. So in that case, the butt, you put a very tight underwear with no how do you call these
Seams.
with no seam,
Zipper.
seamless,
Yeah.
and that's tight against your butt. And then you put another one on top. So if you do shave, it's shave less on your butt. But hygiene is first, and you have to be very rigorous, because it's really easy if you go back in the cabin at 10 p.m. You're tired and it's rough. You just want to fall asleep. It's easy not to take care of the hygiene, but it's what's going to make. What I always say is these kind of adventures, you start with a potential. Or there's potential of the boat, there's potential of the athletes, potential of the weather, and everything happens is you decrease that potential. Maybe you get seasick, you decrease your potential. You get chafing, you decrease the potential. Your oarlock breaks or the paddle breaks, you lose something, you decrease the potential. And you're going to make it in Hawaii if you keep that potential as high as possible. And it's probably the same in sailing. If you have, you could keep the better team. Other one are going to fail because something happens. The first one are going to be the one who keep the potential high. Yes.
All right, I know we're all thinking about it. Not to become overly clinical,
The pooping.
but you're eating and drinking.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, where's your bowl?
It's in the cabin. I have it over there if you want to go get it. No, in fact, you're eating a lot, like 6,000 calories a day. So the pooping, in the rowing, it was a big Home Depot bucket that we could actually sit down. It was good. You just hold on. Now, it was kind of funny because you have to do it when it's not your shift of rowing. So you do it when somebody else is rowing. In fact, you do it in front. I remember my friend was extending to row. He was actually touching my knee when I was in front of him. In that case, it's good because I'm alone, but I don't have much room. And I can't take a Home Depot bucket. So I have actually found this dessert bowl. Dessert. I like to call it the dessert bowl. That is small but strong enough. And what I do is just put it there and I sit on it. And I have a liner that I found at Trader Joe's, is put the fruits on it. And that liner is biodegradable. And it's actually made of algae. I looked in on. So it's not only biodegradable if you put it in the compost, but it's biodegradable by water. So then I do my business. I have baby wipes that are also biodegradable, and boom, outside in the water. So that's the trick. And I tried. I could do it in the cabin. I could do it in the cockpit.
You tried it.
I did.
Are you taking any gin or vodka or bread?
Yes. So I plan to have a liter of red wine.
Okay, good.
And also I have a friend who gave me a flask, and a good luck flask, and I have a single malt whiskey. Yes. And obviously I don't drink too much. The first 2 weeks, if I'm seasick and sleep deprived and tired, I won't take any drop of it.
Yeah.
But maybe halfway point, just to celebrate, a little gulp. And then last week, a little gulp. Last Monday, a little gulp. Oh, get me late.
We have another question from our friends on Zoom. We've had some good well wishes as well, but Gil, do you want to unmute yourself and ask the last question?
Sure. A question: have you worked with ships to see what your image is on their radar, and have you done anything to help enhance that? You may have asked it or mentioned it, and I missed it, but interested.
No,
in that
so,
dynamic.
yeah, I've got an AIS, emitter and a responder, so I could see. I've got a friend who took me on a catamaran trip. He could see my AIS pop on his boat. And then when you click on it, you see Ocean Kayak Valentine, 23 feet. You can even see the color, you can see the speed and my destination. So that'll be crucial for the container ship to know my identity. And the Coast Guard, should they have to come and rescue. Now, I also have an RTE, which is a radar transmitter enhancer, that is going to bounce back the signal from those container ship back to them, and they'll see again my position. So these are the two main safety for other traffic on the water.
Thank you.
Will there be a lot of traffic on the water, do you think?
Not in the middle, but the first, yes, at the beginning. And that was a question whether I should go from Monterey or from here. Obviously, Oakland is right here. There's container ship coming in and out all the time. They see you, and they have a minimum maneuverability. So you just have to make sure you're not in their way. But there is a container ship like highway right out the gate. So I'll get off as far as I can, maybe 40, 50 miles the first day, and second day, and then after I should be okay. But I'll be very vigilant. One of the things we were doing on the rowing is, even though they're quite far, and then you see the two tracking, right? They would not be collision. If you think they're coming within 4 or 5 miles, you still call them on channel 16 and say, hey, this is Ocean Cove, Valentine, Ocean Cove, whatever, and say, I'm very slow. I'm on sea anchor. I can't move. Can you please just deroute so you go around me? And it was a source of a lot of fun, because in the middle of the Pacific, you have this container coming from China. You understand no word. Say, listen, can you repeat? I'm actually French, so I don't understand you. Okay, just go around me. That whatever you say, and then another container ship going to be this British guy, like a beautiful British accent, and I don't understand any word he's saying, anyways. Same thing. I have to record this.
What will your sleep pattern be, and how much off course will you
Yeah,
be?
how do you handle sleep? I mean,
Yes. So on a solo, the pattern is when the sun rises, you start paddling. Maybe for an hour, have breakfast, paddle for 3-4 hours, have lunch, and then until sun goes down. It's not very safe unless the conditions are good and you're making good progress. The wind is favorable and the seas are not too big. Then you could go on in the night, and if you feel good, obviously. But most likely, sun goes down, you get ready, maybe put the drogue to have the boat perpendicular to the wave, trailing the boat, and just go inside. And until the sunrise, you probably stay inside. Now, I don't think sleep will be 8 hours straight. Most likely, I've got a kitchen timer, and put 2 hours to wake up every 2 hours.
You anchor while you sleep so you don't go off course?
Yeah, sea anchor is really would slow me down. So if it's unfavorable bringing me back to the coast, I put the sea anchor. But if it's bringing me the good way, the boat is really well made. It's so good, the design. Let me explain you very quickly. So the boat is like this, all right? The aft would be here, and I'm in the middle. The boat is flat. Now, if I go in the cabin in the back, the bow is going to raise a little bit, not much, but the only thing dragging is going to be my rudder in the water. So the boat will flare automatically. The wind is going to push the bow downwind, and then this is basically where the rotation is going to happen in the rudder. That's why we decided not to have a keel for more stability, but to have a dagger board just that I can remove at night, and then it'll just go downwind, even if it's really blowing. Like I could go towards the Golden Gate with the ebb, sorry. If the wind is coming the other way, my boat's going to turn around. It's crazy. It's really, really good design. So that is very safe, because that means in a downwind condition at night, I could make a lot of progress. If the wind is favorable, I just let it drift.
why do you wake up every 2 hours? Why do you contend?
Well, just for safety, I've got an alarm that tells me if a container ship comes within a radius of 7 or 8 miles. I can change that. But just for safety, let's say a container ship goes 8-9 miles an hour. That means in 2 hours, they would do 15 to 20 miles. Okay, so I go on my GPS, I look at 20-mile radius. I don't see any boat. I'm good for 2 hours. Put the alarm clock, 2 hours, sleep, wake up, look at the sea a little bit. Okay, I'm good for 2 hours. There.
Well, after you're successful, please come back and talk to us.
Yes, will do. Thank you so much.
And we have something for you. We have something for you.
Thank you. I want to present you with our club birthday.
Oh, fantastic! I love it. I'm so proud to put it in. Beautiful. It means a lot. Thank you so much. This is my hometown. This is my home. This is my yeah.
This is your hometown. Congratulations.
Okay. Merci. Thank you so much for your attention. Yeah.